Hello and welcome to episode number 19 of the loading screen. Tonight we have a variety of topics, but we do have a special guest to introduce. First we have Monsterous Rage, of course, the Canadian cue ball. We have Angry Iceberg, the living emoji. And tonight our special guest, the epic family monarch himself, Epic Dan. Tonight we will be discussing Destiny, Xbox crossplay, and whether or not sports games need to get some steroids in themselves. But tonight we're going to go ahead and start off with Destiny like we always do. Now, Destiny has been trying different things with PvP, trying to bring back some of the old guns to kind of get players that used to play a lot of PvP back into it. I want to know if you guys feel like Destiny is really trying to revitalize and revamp their PvP structure, or just kind of basically throwing everything into one pot and hoping something sticks. We'll go ahead and start with Angry Iceberg.
I don't think they're trying to revamp their PvP. I think maybe they're adding to it. And I really haven't seen them bringing back. I mean, I guess I'm not sure what you say, bringing back the old weapons. I'm not really sure where you're coming from there. If you're talking about how people started using Thorn in that Crimson Doubles thing, that was just basically the way that Crucible is designed. That there is no level advantage, that it allowed for, weapons like that, old weapons to be used, because it didn't really matter if it was a new weapon or an old weapon. They all kind of shoot the same, more or less. I mean, you still have the old perks they're still able, you're still capable of using and whatnot. And, as far as they're basically, I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to balance it, and get it to a point where perhaps since, Activision actually picked up MLG, that maybe they're moving toward, trying to make it more of a competitive style of PvP that can be adopted into an MLG style, format. And that's just, just throwing things out there, not really necessarily believing that's true or not. But, right. I think that maybe they're looking towards year two, and they're trying some different things out now, that to see where they can take Destiny 2 PvP, what direction they're going to take that to. But as far as revamping it, I don't know if they're really revamping it as trying to improve it, trying to add more to it with some different game modes, kind of like the what's it called, not the free for all, where you basically can go in by yourself,
the
and
freelance.
Freelance. There we go. I knew free was in there somewhere. So, I think they're just trying to make improvements, and which they need to do. They're trying to improve matchmaking, which is kind of a horse apiece. Sometimes, like tonight, I was playing Iron Banner, and for the most part, lag was pretty decent, but there were some games that were absolutely horrible, including the last match I played. There was one guy that just was not taking damage at all and just running around and just being annoying. So, I think just like any company, they're trying to improve the product, and make it more attractive. They know they have competition coming up, but I don't think they're really intentionally bringing back old weapons, but it's a product of some of the changes they've made, especially the special ammo changes they made to some of the smaller game types, like your 3v3s and whatnot. Right. So, I think that's kind of where it is. I think they're just trying to improve it, not necessarily revamp it.
Okay. Epic Dan?
I kind of want to piggyback off what Iceberg said, and I found it very interesting, the path that we've taken. I agree that they are trying to make it more, they're trying to make PvP where if you want to be real sweaty, or like they call it, be very competitive, you have that PvP side. However, not everybody wants to jump into PvP to always be very competitive. So Bungie, since I've been a fan of Bungie since 2000, whenever Halo first came out, and they've made a lot of very, very good ideas in PvP that Call of Duty, all the other type of PvP games have kind of jumped off of and created like their own versions of. However, when I look at Destiny now, I wonder why we don't have a separate playlist where if you want to play competitive people, you can go directly into that. Versus if you just want to play with your friends and just, just have fun, you have this other more laid back, playlist. And I feel like that would take away some of the issues that we deal with. Not all of them in PvP is going to be fixed with this having these two different playlists, but it would take some of the issues away. It is a cumulative effect of having year 2 weapons and year 1 weapons compete.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. Yeah. Whereas year 1 weapons should not be as viable in those playlists as they are. If you're going to take away year 1 stats on these weapons and let them kind of stay in the past, you need to let them stay in the past. Or if you're going to let them viable in a certain playlist, have specific playlists that they only can work on. I don't want to see somebody in trials with Thorn. It's not. I don't want to see that.
Yeah.
You took it out of year 2 for a reason, right? So there should be no reason I should be able to play any PvP year 2 based playlist and have to come across these same effects and these same issues. I played a PvP game about a week ago where somebody was effectively using Gjallarhorn. Granted, there was a nerf Gjallarhorn, but it was still a Gjallarhorn where once he picked up heavy, he could still, wreck shop. So if you're gonna make these weapons still usable in PvP, you need to have certain playlists that they are there. So you could take any weapon in these playlists, but if you want to play in trials, Iron Banner, any year 2 playlists, you have to use year 2 weapons. That won't fix a lot of issues. We'll still gonna have, some lag, but that'll fix at least my issue that I've always had with the weapon balancing. And that's why I feel like they keep bringing back all these year 1 weapons, because people still use them anyway. So why not just bring them back? So that's what I've always just thought about it.
Now, I'm going to propose something kind of interesting to you, Dan. I want to see if you would give it a thumbs up, thumbs down. What if you were to have specific weapons only for PvP? What if you were to split it PvE and PvP and say whenever you go into PvP you have like a locker to choose your loadout and you could choose out 5 or 6 different guns and you can switch them between matches, but have that separate from the PvE guns? How would you feel about that?
I think that is a good direction. I would prefer if I had to think about, okay, if these weapons are specifically for PvP, they need to have PvP specific perks. Something that makes me want to actually use PvP weapons versus just mod everywhere. If there needs to be something that, okay, these weapons can be used in PvP and PvP. However, these PvP based weapons are always in most situations going to be more viable to you versus having, mod and multi-tool everywhere in PvP and PvE. Yeah. However, like that's kind of what they've gone with, but they haven't taken enough of a avenue for that. Like there's the weapons that drop specifically from PvP games. Right. Those weapons should have something that makes you want to actually use Party Crasher over Conspiracy Theory. That's mainly a PvE weapon that comes from PvE missions and stuff. Yeah. So if there's going to be weapons that drop in PvP, there should be something that makes you really want to use it versus something you can just go do a quest on. Right. So that avenue, I think, would work if they made it actually viable and makes you want to use it. In most situations, makes you want to use it because of some effect or some perk or just being more useful in PvP.
I gotcha. Anything to add, Monsterous Rage?
Well, yeah, like, I mean, I don't play PvP at all, and I don't do raids. Strikes, campaign stuff. I just like playing those type of games with friends, getting involved, just having a good time. But at the same time, if there was that classification where they would separate it and give somebody like me a chance to jump into it without just getting completely decimated, I'm all for that, and that might bring the casual gamer into Destiny. But as for Destiny as a whole, I think right now all this is focused on the hardcore gamer, and that's fine because there's a lot of you out there that love this game. Yeah. And there's a lot to love. It's just that we're different gamers, and I don't really have much more to say other than what they've already offered up, and I'll tell you, angry. He's gonna tend to know what he's talking about because he, plays Destiny. So I would listen to Angry and Epic Dan. I'm not gonna put him out of the loop either. I know he plays a lot of Destiny too. So listen to those guys. Don't listen to me. I'm just the casual guy that plays Destiny every once in a while and pretends to be good when we all know I'm not.
Yeah. No, I would say that, I'll just kind of step on it, or jump in here a little bit again.
Yeah.
When you're talking about playlists, I think there definitely could use a hard, like a ranked playlist and an unranked playlist, just for, the people that just want to compete for glory, right? But I think you're kind of moving against the initial design of Destiny if you were to, because one thing you'd think, okay, it's like, well, what would attract people to play the ranked playlist? Well, loot, right? Well, then again, that's where you're kind of against what the, Destiny's more geared toward a more casual play style. And when you're limiting the, the loot you're going to get from one playlist to another, you already kind of have that with Trials of Osiris.
Yeah.
You already kind of have that with Iron Banner now. But I think that you would have to kind of balance the two, still be able to get, the same loot from a ranked playlist on an unranked playlist. It would just be basically a statistical thing, so hopefully, the people that are, looking for that super competitive PvP, they'd go and jump into the ranked playlist because they want to get to number one on the leaderboard or whatever. Right. And then have the unranked playlist, kind of like you do in like Call of Duty and stuff like that. Or not Call of Duty, like the old Rainbow Six games used to have that and stuff. And some of the other games used to have that. But as far as you're talking about having different PvE and PvP weapons, I don't think that's really necessary, just for the simple fact that I don't want to limit what I can take into PvP. As far as like, if it's a weapon in Destiny, we should be able to take it in. Now Destiny can easily balance that, like we were talking before, just based on the perks. Okay. And a lot of the weapons are balanced in that way.
Right.
Just based on the perks alone. Yes, the ones dropping in your PvP should be, geared with perks, and usually they are, but geared with perks that are primarily, PvP beneficial. The PvE ones, the ones that you're getting from the raid and stuff like that, should be geared toward your PvE. But again, if you're just doing that, then the people that are playing PvE may not want to jump into PvP just because the PvE weapons they have aren't effective in PvP. So you kind of have to have a balance there. But you will find that generally speaking, like I have my loadout for the raid, and then I have my loadout for PvP, and they're completely different for the most part, with very few exceptions. Right. Some of them kind of cross over, but generally you're running two different loadouts. Your armor sets are a little bit different. Like I wouldn't take the Titan build that I was playing tonight, a Striker Titan with Twilight Garrison, into the raid, because as much fun as it is to play that build, it's not as effective in the raid. The same thing that I wouldn't, I'm not one to bring my Defender Titan into PvP just because it's the use of that Defender Titan's somewhat limited. So I think there is a balance already there. They could maybe do a little bit more, but I think I'm all right with kind of the way they do it now.
Right.
So
yeah.
Yeah, I can see them, adding, like they're going to be adding new exotics and whatnot. So I could see maybe possibly even better weapon balancing for PvE and PvP alike coming soon. So the next one, we're going to be talking about sports games. Probably nobody here plays many of them, but we're going to talk about it anyway. What sports games can do to bring life into a stale genre? We covered this way back in the past. I wanted to go ahead and cover it again, because sports games, they're fun. They're fun if you're playing, couch, LAN parties or whatnot. You're a big football fan, you're going to play football, hockey fans, Monsterous Rage. can go and play hockey.
I'm a hockey fan too here, man. It's not just Canadians, man.
And Angry Iceberg.
That's
bread.
you're
It's just bread in
stereotyping
us.
him.
Bread in us.
I am genophobing or something like that, where it's like geography based. But how do you guys feel like sports games as a whole can kind of break out of the mold? Like, okay, you're spending $60 for basically a roster update, which we're basically doing now, and we have been for roughly the past 10 years.
That's longer than that.
I know it's hard to kind of make new modes and whatnot, but how would you feel like it would be a sports genre's way of kind of getting back into, okay, this is a fun game, instead of just, oh, it's another sports game. I got Tim Tebow on my team now, woohoo. Let's go ahead and start with Monsterous Rage.
All right. Well, there's two things that I definitely would say need to be updated. One, their servers are garbage across the platforms. I've never played a good sports game where I play online and I get through the whole game without getting disconnected or somebody getting disconnected. The servers are they need a lot of work. And they need to start focusing on that because a lot of people are complaining about that. The other thing, too, you touched on this, is the rosters. You're going from year to year paying that $60 bill, or in Canuckville, it's turning into $90 a bill for just an updated roster. If you look at 4 games through maybe 2012 to 2016, and you look at the 2012 version and the 2016 version, and there is barely anything changing in those 2 games. Mm-hmm. But you did buy the versions in between because you got the new players, and you might have got a tweak to one of the modes. I think it's a big ripoff for people that are sports fans. People that are dedicated to the sport that they play are going to buy this every year because they want that update. But I think it's a much easier system, and you're going to gain more fandom if you just do a $20 DLC pack to update the roster every year, instead of forcing people to buy a new game. Because let's be honest, that's all it is. Rosters. Mm-hmm. That's all it is. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Angry Iceberg.
Well, I think you need to. I think you should, as if you're trying to sell more copies, you have to be constantly improving on what you're doing. And now, again, when you're designing a sports game, there's only so much you can do to the game itself. It's really it has to get to a point where you're improving how it plays, the control that you have, the depth of the game. And there are different ways to create different game modes. I think you want to look for ways to make it more immersive. Find ways. And they kind of do it a little bit with with your Be a Pro, or your where you're actually just one single player. Just find different ways to change how people play it. And give people options of how they want to play. Do they just want to be the coach? Do they just want to be the GM? And obviously there's things that they do, but they also, what they do seems like when they move from one generation to the next, they have a tendency to strip back some of these features. Mm-hmm. I think, improving graphical performance is always going to be a big thing. The closer they can get to, photorealism, the better. It really, it comes down to fantasy fulfillment. That's what sports games somewhat are. Obviously, the sports, what's great about sports games is they already have gameplay already built into them. You just have to be able to bring it out. Like, playing hockey is playing hockey. Playing football is playing football. As long as it controls well, that's what it's really about. That's one of the great things that, for example, the EA NHL series had over the 2K NHL series was how it controlled primarily the skill stick. They worked some of that sort of thing into Madden and also into FIFA and stuff like that. But it's also just about depth. You could have modes where you literally take somebody from high school, not just 1 or 2 games, but actually, progress a career, and actually make decisions. And there's many different things you can do to make, the sports game interesting instead of just being a roster update. So it's really about that immersion. It's about creating that fantasy and letting the player live out that fantasy and not just just play football or just play hockey.
Right. Epic Dan, anything?
Well, to kind of say what they both said, the reason we all play games, as far as sports games, is one, we love the sport, and two, we want to be put in these athletes' shoes. So when it comes down to it, there's only so far that we can go in visuals. Of course, like Iceberg said, they created, playlists, or shall I say, type of game types, like be the coach, want to play, be a pro type of series. That gives you closer to wanting to be the superstar athlete that you see on TV every other night. However, there's only so much we can do, in graphics. So you can't just say every year, okay, we got new graphics. Okay, we are going to have that every year, but there's only so much you're going to see with the eye that's going to be, okay, I can't really tell what's the difference in this versus last year. Yeah. The controls, of course, is probably the one thing that every year they're going to be able to, fix a little thing here or there. In any game, I can only speak for the most part for like NBA 2K series and NBA Live, and that's what I've mostly played over my life. Right. However, this applies for most others because I think they all have really been made by either EA or 2K. So they've pretty much done all the sports series from all the four major sporting type of game types. So, I mean, there's really the only thing it comes down now to is what can we do to make you stay immersed into this game? Like Monsterous was saying, it would be very simple for us to put out a almost subscription type of game where you pick up this one game and every year you just pay $15-$20 for a roster update and still be able to play online. Like the main two reasons I would think somebody picks up NBA 2K17 versus staying with 2K16 is being able to play online and having the most updated rosters. Yeah. If that was the only two things that made somebody buy a game, then you have to think outside the box, finding a reason for somebody to get the new edition. Because if I were to just be able to have the updated rosters and be able to still play online, I probably would have still had NBA 2K10 or something like that. Outside of that, there's no reason to pick it up. So like Iceberg was saying, there has to be something that they have put in the game that they might not put in the previous games, or they might have fixed or might have enhanced that can give you a reason outside of those two things to pick up the game. I can't say what those things need to be, but the path they need to go is somehow figuring a way to keep these the people that basically support their game every year interested, besides being able to play online and roster updates.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think a DLC for $15-$20 in order to get that new roster update, be able to play online, I think that's more reasonable than charging $60 for an entire new game when it looks the exact same as the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Well, what it really boils down to is if you guys keep buying it, they're going to keep making it.
Yeah,
so stop buying it.
And the hardcore fans are going to keep buying it.
Yeah.
And they're just making money off of it because, right now, I have one sports game, and that's golf. Well, the one thing with golf is the rosters really never change. And you're new to courses. Yeah. So I buy one golf game for one next-gen system. I'm good. I don't need any more golf games. Now, with like baseball, football, soccer, hockey, they do have constant roster updates that you need to keep track of and buy the new game for. But, I mean, it'd be much more simple for even the developers to have these roster updates be like, okay, we got a roster update for you. We have an extra game mode. $14.99 for a DLC. There you go. That way you're not shipping on disc to stores. You can have one or two possibly per next-gen console of a specific sports title, and then just go DLC from there. I think that's a more feasible option for both parties because you're not shipping out product. You're making it more available for every consumer to buy it, and it's not taxing on everybody.
Mm-hmm.
That's just it. They're thinking in terms. The corporation will be thinking in terms of, oh well, if we do that and just put out DLC, we're not making the money that we're going to make. But they have to consider there's going to be new clientele. There's going to be new people that are going to be like, you know what, I'm on board with this now because now I'm not going to have to buy a $60 game. So they get a whole new group of people that are buying their games, and that more than makes up for that money loss, plus a little more on the top. But yeah,
would you keep the prices up if they did that?
That's what it comes down to. Less money, more people are going to buy it. It's just economics.
Because every year, after 3 months after the games come out, it's half price pretty much like at GameStop. You can keep the price at $60 for 4 years if you're just going to drop an update.
And that's just it. You could keep it at that price for sure. You wouldn't have to, but that's just it. Until we as consumers change our habits, they're not going to change theirs.
Right. And I just feel like that would be a more, feasible marketing way in order to kind of get more revenue into sports games. But who's going to be the first company that tries it? That's going to be an interesting question. Because will it happen? Probably. Probably not this generation, maybe not the next, but eventually something like that will come along where it'll be DLC only, and we'll see what the numbers show. But I have a theory that it would actually be a lot more profitable for the organizations to do so. Let's see. Next topic will be the new features of Twitch. Now, Twitch has been getting some new features and some updates. The website's been going down a lot, but we are starting to get some new features in Twitch. And how you guys feel about it? I know there's a new feature where your past broadcasts will play the chat and whatnot, or you can screen cap chat and whatnot. How you guys feel about new features coming to Twitch, and what features would you like to see? We'll go ahead and start with Angry Iceberg.
The first thing I'd like to see is being able to opt out of transcoding. Or just give transcoding to everybody.
Yes!
Thank you. Yes.
Yes.
Oh God.
The one thing is I actually sent Twitch an email after two or three nights last week where I got transcoding and ended up losing half my audience because of it. From people either just being idle or just moving on to other streamers after they figured that I went offline. I'd like to see that kind of just having that option of just having that go away, because obviously for a growing streamer, if you're having a good night and that happens, people just figure you just went offline and they bail. It's hard to really pick that momentum back up sometimes. So that would be a really big thing. I think that more filter options for your directories would be great. Maybe filter by time stream, how long they've streamed that day, or how long they've been streaming altogether, or just how many, maybe have it to where you could actually put the lowest number of viewers on top, just different ways to kind of filter the directory instead of just always having your top streamers always at the top. And again, I understand why they have their top streamers at the top, obviously, but sometimes it can definitely, make it harder for growing streamers to be noticed, especially if they're buried at the bottom of the directory. And some people all they're looking for is those guys that, are at the bottom of the directory. So it's just, just different filter options. I don't know. There's a lot of different things, but I mean, those would be kind of the big ones, the first ones that come to mind.
All right, Dan.
I think the first thing I was gonna say, Iceberg he just dropped the bomb. I can't tell you how many times I was having a good night, the numbers were rising, chat was going well, and then bam, they hit you with those transcoding. I remember when they originally announced it, I said, okay, this is good. I have a lot of my community members who don't have the best of connections. Once we hit that, we hit it, pretty regularly throughout the week, this will help them be able to watch. However, the negative effect comes of it where you spam the chat, refresh. He's not offline. But it's almost too late in most cases. And you probably see, 20-30% of your audience, your new audience that saw you because you were higher up in the directory, gone.
And you just sunk.
And then you're back down. It's kind of like, can I opt out of this, until like I get to that point where I, can have from the moment I go live quality settings. I get why they do it, but there needs to be some way that they can change it to where either it automatically kicks on it doesn't basically stop your stream or something like that. The simple thing is, like Iceberg said, just opting out of it. I'd rather be able to just have my specific just settings of my quality for the entire time of my stream versus 3 hours into the stream is going well, and then the mods, myself, and everybody that knows I'm not actually offline just spam and refresh. He's not offline. The filters are a really good idea. I don't know how they could help it out. There needs to be a lot more filters. If you can filter by region, just to find people similar to you, filter by how language is another, because there's only so much we can have with just seeing a little English at the front of the thing. How long they're live, how many followers, something, give us more options to find who we want to meet, how long their accounts have been open, things like that, whatever it can be. I think there just need to be more options to find newer people. That's really the only way we can grow. I get why in any directory, those people who have the thousands of people watching them are going to sit at that directory. However, for Twitch's community to grow, of course, I know you want to support those people, but you have to find some way to get these lower people more of an audience, because you never know who might blow up. But they just can't, because the game that they want to play is just in a terrible directory, or just a directory suffocated with people that, we might not get the best of numbers, but we love this game. We shouldn't be penalized.
I feel like you're talking about me.
No. No.
That mug, though.
I was like, oh, God, no. But I've been on both sides of it. I've been on the side where I'm in a directory and I'm in the middle. Things are going well. I get back to the bottom because we hit transcoding. I've been on the side of it where I'm at the top of the directory, and that's just it. They just see me. They won't be able to see all these other streamers that are really great. They just don't have the numbers, don't have the audience, or they just don't have, the longevity of streaming that is necessary to build some sort of community. So there needs to be some sort of way to kind of have maybe once a week, just flip it on their head. All the people that are going to be 1, 2, 5, 10, 20, 30 people are going to be at the top of the directory. You're still going to see those people at the bottom of the directory who have thousands of people. They might be on the side. You might have the directory just have, spotlights on the side of the directory versus having just related games. Just put the spotlight on some people that you might want to pick out. Something needs to be shown that we want to help these smaller people, but still focus on our bottom line, which is, of course, those main people in the directory. The only way to grow the directory is to grow the streams and the viewers of those smaller streams. So.
Right. All right, Monsterous Rage?
Yeah, I mean, both of those are great things that need to be implemented. I'm not going to keep drawing on about it because, I feel exactly the same way they do. I do want to talk about, though, the fact that they have implemented this chat wheel that'll go with past broadcasts. I think that is fantastic. I'm a person that does screen cap chat on my broadcast, so I don't have to do that anymore.
Yes.
I don't have to do that anymore because anybody can check the video on demand and it is there. So that eliminates that extra step. That's fantastic for me, and I hope that that actually is great for any viewer out there that maybe missed one of your favorite broadcasters, and you can go back and see what everybody was laughing about. So I think that's a really good implementation. But yeah, as far as the search, I do see something like that 1 day a week situation, but there are a lot of broadcasters that are in, like low numbers, but sorry guys, they are there for a reason. So I think that if they were to implement that, it would be difficult because they don't want to put somebody that's, hey guys, I'm going to play a game today. and have
All
that
right,
as their
Elmerfoot.
top guy, right? So have that as their top guy on Twitch. That's probably not going to promote Twitch well. But yeah, we definitely need something to get the smaller guys known. If you're going to be a variety broadcaster, that's just the way it is. You deal with it. But for the people that are streaming that one game, there needs to be a way to boost their numbers up or get people in. And I think that would be a good way to do it, to have a search engine working better for us.
Right. I actually like the fact that they're including chat into past broadcasts. I actually have a theory or an idea of how, smaller streamers can get noticed a little bit more. Right above the top guys in any given directory, they could have a small space where it's a stream highlight and pick a random stream for 30 minutes at a time in that directory and have them at the very top of the page. That way, as soon as you load up that directory, boom, they're the first thing you see. And just have it random. Every 30 minutes, shuffle somebody else in. And that way it gives them 30 minutes of top page exposure. And I think that way, people can click on it. If they like it, good. If not, then they move on in directory. But it does give people that little bit of, advertising time in order to capture that audience and have a better chance of being a success on Twitch. Also, have it so where you can market yourself via Twitch. As you guys said, the encoding and whatnot, you guys wish you can just get rid of it. What if you were to go turbo, but go like Turbo Plus? Instead of $8.99, you're paying about $14.99, and you automatically get those quality options. That way, you don't have to
I'd
worry
pay for
about
it.
that.
Yeah,
I'd pay for it.
I'd pay for it in a minute because then you can reach a broader audience that don't have the great connections, and that way you can reach everybody instead of streaming for 3 hours and then boom, quality options kills the last 2 hours of your stream, and it's all segmented in your past broadcasts, and it's dookie. So I'd actually like to pay for quality options. And I'd also like to see like a 30-minute or even a 15-minute highlight, just refreshing every 15 minutes in any given directory where you have a spotlight right at the top. Yeah. So, nice. Microtransactions. This is going to get fun. Microtransactions and DLC. What do you guys think the future is of DLC and microtransactions? Are we going to have more DLC, more microtransactions?
Yeah.
Or are you going to see games kind of incorporate that more into the price of the game itself? We'll go ahead and start with Epic Dan this time.
I think we're going to stay at the $60, $65 price range. I think last gen or the gen before the PlayStation era, we said about $50. I remember, at least at my age, when my parents, was still buy me video games, the $10 jump in video games was just like, oh my God, I could barely afford to pay $50 for this game I'm not going to play for you. Now you want me to pay $10, $15 plus tax more? I can barely do that. Not saying that they couldn't afford it, but they don't see the worth of a $50 game, much less a $65 game, like the person that they're purchasing it for. And I feel like they would probably sell less. It sounds crazy, but they probably would sell less overall. If they were to keep raising the prices. I did remember I read a thread about a year and a half ago where they were toying with the idea of raising the prices with the current gen, which is like Xbox One and PS4, but some people were saying that was going to be about $70 per game.
Right.
Clearly, they would be not the smartest people to keep raising the prices every few years. Right. That's why probably DLCs and microtransactions, at least for microtransactions, we'll see more of, because they won't touch the price of the game, but they still want you to pay for these extra little things here and there more often. They could just put it and just say, here's an $80 game with all the stuff, or here's a $60 game, and if you want that other stuff, $10 here, $10 there, $10 there.
Well, they already do that with the pre-orders and the collector's edition, and they pretty much already do that, where you get the season pass in there and whatnot.
Instead of just giving us the entire game, I guess raising the price. Yeah,
I can actually, we're actually technically due for a price increase. Inflation.
No.
We are. We honestly are. I mean, we've been paying $60 for games since PS3.
90.
And due to inflation, we are technically due for a $10 bump in game prices. It's not something that I want. Trust me, I pay enough for games as it is, but it's something that is due. So microtransactions and DLC kind of help, curb that for now. But I do see probably next generation a bump in price. How you feel about that, Monsterous Rage?
Well, the future is going to be all hard drives. That's what it's going to be. There is going to be no discs in the future, so everything's going to be DLC and microtransactions. You're starting to see that with Nintendo Next coming out. I think they might be using discs, but I highly doubt that it'll be for games. They're using hard drive space and linking systems to each other. So yeah, everything's going to go the way of DLC. Everything's going the way of microtransactions, and you don't like the game going up $10. Well, it really doesn't matter because they already have that game priced out at $140. They're just going to put it into chunks to make you pay $140 for that game. So yeah, it's going nowhere. It's going nowhere. This is the way it is, and if you aren't on board, you're getting left behind. And there's really nothing else to say. That's the way things are going. People, get on board because it is the future.
Let me dream.
Yeah, Iceberg.
What are we talking about again?
The future DLC and microtransactions.
I know.
Destiny, man, Destiny.
I was just over here taking a nap. No, seriously. Yeah, Destiny. No, I don't think that microtransactions are going anywhere. I think that we had our wave of free to play games, and I don't think that's going to go anywhere. But I think that the publishers are definitely discovering that if they put something out there for us to buy, we will buy it. I mean, it's just the reality of it. So I really don't see microtransactions going anywhere, and I don't know if it's necessarily a bad thing. I think the only way it could be really a bad thing is if they do withhold content that we would normally get in what we expect to pay, for $60. So I think that if they were to withhold that, then I think that's a problem. But again, we're somewhat at the mercy of the publisher and the developer, and I think it's more the publisher for the most part is the people that are actually selling the product. So I don't think I think it is a future. I think microtransactions, DLC, we're not going to see it go anywhere because it is a way for a company to continually make profit on a game instead of just a one-time transaction. It's just the world we live in. Again, like Monsterous Rage said, it's going highly digital. So that's where we're going.
Yeah, I believe that you guys are all right. Microtransactions will be here and they're not going anywhere. It's just a reality of having online-based consoles because now that's a new market for them to tap into. You might not be willing to pay $20 for a new expansion, but you're probably going to be willing to pay $1 or $2 for a new emote or a new dance or something. It's almost like the Candy Crush syndrome where you have so many microtransactions in order to play the game. You're so hooked on it by the time you get to that point that you're like, well, it's only $1. It's only $1. And soon enough, you're $60 in, you're like, oh crap. I hate this game now. But
it's only $1.
It's only $1. Exactly. It's nickel and diming. But this is their way of substituting revenue because they don't make that much developing the game for $60 and selling it that way because they're putting way more money into that game than for it to go off the shelf at $60. So every once in a while, I'll buy a thing at DLC. I bought some for Killer Instinct. I bought Night Squad, which was absolutely horrible. Screw you, monster. But I mean, I'll fork out money for DLC whenever I get enough time into a game in order to warrant it. Like Destiny and whatnot, I pay for DLC. But when it's games like, I don't know, Fallout 4 that I've already played through, I don't know if I'm going to buy DLC. Because I just don't really see a point in it right now. They're adding a little bit of area and a few more missions. Okay, that's not really for me. Alright, so the value of graphics in gaming. Gaming graphics have evolved over the years. You know, PS1, PS2, PS3, PS4, Xbox 360, Xbox One. We've all seen a shift from really cruddy squares going up and down playing Pong up until, you know, Fallout, Tomb Raider, and these high graphical input games like Witcher 3 and whatnot. How do you guys feel about the value of graphics in a video game? Does it make a game? Does it break a game for you? Or are you kind of indifferent about it? Let's go and start with Rage.
I think it really comes down to age. And I don't want to be that guy that says age is the factor, but as a person that grew up in the, you know, NES days, a game is good if it's good. Graphics will make a game look pretty, but if the game sucks, I don't care about the graphics. So me growing up, I went through that 8-bit, 16-bit, 32-bit, 64-bit, and to where we are now. And games that were good back then are just as good now. I still find myself going back to like Super Mario Brothers 3 and playing through that. A game is good or it's bad, and you can't make a pretty game be a great game if it's just terrible. So sure, I like to look at pretty things, but it's not my deciding factor in game content at all.
Right. Okay. Angry Iceberg.
Well, you know, I'm going to kind of contradict a little bit of what Monsterous Rage said, because I grew up in the same time frame, and actually for me back then, it was really the progression of games was all about the quality of the graphics. I mean, when you bought a game, it wasn't like, man, this game is fun. It was like, man, look at those graphics. I mean, that's how it was. At least that was my experience. And usually, you know, graphics, for the most part, you know, early on, graphics kind of coincided with gameplay back then. You know, one instance of that, I would say, would be Ninja Gaiden or Ninja Gaiden. I used to call it Ninja Gaiden. I think I was saying it wrong. Anyway, point is that like back in the day, man, those first cutscenes, right? Those cutscenes, you're like, whoa, look at that! That's so realistic.
It was like
you know, those
watching
graphics.
a movie.
I know, and then we ended up getting our Nintendo Super Nintendos, and you know, then you know when you played Super Contra for the first time, right? And that thing came down from the sky. You're like, whoa, look at that! It's like going from really big to really small, even though it's like all pixelated and you couldn't really make out what it was anyway. But you know, so. You know, I don't think that graphics and gameplay have to be necessarily mutually exclusive. I think that we're kind of, our viewpoint may be a little skewed now that, you know, it's kind of gone backwards a little bit, where indie developers or smaller developers have kind of toyed a little bit with our nostalgia just by saying, you know, making a lot of pixelated games or 8-bit games or, you know, 16-bit games and whatnot.
Yeah, Shovel Knight.
Yeah, Shovel Knight, you know, but you know, again, you know, that's kind of where it, you know, if the gameplay is there, obviously it really doesn't matter. But again, if you were to play Shovel Knight, it had like Atari level graphics, you know, it might be affecting, you know, not only, you know, your immersion in the game, but also just the way that the game plays anyway. But so I think, you know, at the same time, like now they can make a game really, really pretty, okay, but still look retro. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it kind of like yeah, okay, but but I was thinking more like along the lines of like Shovel Knight. You know, I mean, it has a feel of like an older game, but it is more updated graphics. Or even if you're looking at like Mario Maker to some extent, you know, it's kind of that same thing. But for me, like, I've always progressed per system. Like, generally, when a new generation comes out, I generally don't go back to the old generation. I mean, I have my Xbox 360 sitting up here. I've got 120 or better games sitting in a folder behind me with like 30 or 40 of them that I've never even played. I probably won't ever play them, you know? So I generally don't go back. And so for me personally, graphics definitely has a lot to do with it. I remember growing up in the NES era, I would forgive, gameplay because it looked good, it looked better than this game or that game. So for me, just visually, it's, a game, I like a game that's visually appealing. I've never been one to be really big into the retro, movement that they had with the indie thing. So, yeah, I think for me, definitely. I mean, like, for example, I'm gonna use this as an example. A game that I know Monsterous Rage and I are both looking forward to is Cuphead. We don't even know how this game plays. Neither one of us have played it, but we're like,
it's gonna be epic, man. Epic.
Again, see, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Is that we look at it visually, it looks pretty, it looks awesome, and we already made the judgment it's going to be an amazing game.
But it goes back to 1930s comic style. So is that
no? But it's cartoon style. It's cartoon style. It's a different art style. It looks beautiful. It looks like we're playing a freaking cartoon. It doesn't look like. Oh, I know. So, but I mean that kind of draws on the point. So I mean, I think that again, I say it all the time. For me, immersion is super important. And graphic quality definitely adds to that. I know, looking at people playing The Division, I remember watching people play The Division on the 360 or not on the 360, but the Xbox One and the PS4, and I'd be like, all right, I kind of see what they're into. But then I'd see people play it on the PC, I'd be like, damn, that game looks good, and making me more want to play it. I mean, I had no desire to even try it until. I saw people playing it on the PC, and then I went ahead and downloaded the beta and gave it a try for a few hours. Still not a game I'm really all that interested in, but the point is, I think that graphic quality definitely is important, and I don't, unless your target audience, and there is a target audience for retro grade gaming, I think that you should be shooting for the highest fidelity, in your graphics that you can. Whenever you can, whether it be your frame rate or your resolution, different things like that. But again, there is a market for that retro style of gameplay. So,
okay, Epic Dan.
I think I can speak for us that we all, for the most part, grew up in the whole video game era, at least from NES on. I know NES was the first game I picked up, of course, was Super Mario. So I've kind of grown up for the most part from the beginning. Not the beginning, but from the resurgence of video games with the NES. It's interesting now looking back then because I feel like still what draws you into a game is the visuals. What keeps you there is the gameplay, the story, the mechanics, all the other stuff. We're as humans, we're visual people. That's just a guarantee. So you see something that draws your eyes in. Oh, let me go see, what this game is about. Oh, this game has a good story. The game has really good game mechanics. That's what keeps you in for hours on end. So I feel like visuals still need to be at the forefront. I know a lot of people will argue when it comes to console wars or PC master race. At this point, I feel like it's not as big of an argument as it was maybe last gen or the gen before, because console graphics have come such a far mile versus probably, I guess, the comparative distance of PC versus console was a lot more noticeable versus now. Right. Granted, of course, with the right PC setup, you can still have a PC master race type computer, but it's not necessary to go out and spend $1,500 to have a really nice looking gameplay experience where you have $300 for a console now. So I feel like visuals have still an importance on a video game, but not as much of an importance as it probably had last gen. Right. But I still feel we need to focus on how does this game look. But after we get that first barrier down, what's going to keep us? It's going to be the story and all the other stuff that comes in after there. So I don't feel like we need to just say don't even worry about visuals anymore. That's still going to need to be there,
Oh, for sure, yeah.
but it's not as much of a selling point anymore. Visuals aren't that selling point because everything's going to look good just because of technology that we have now. But I've come such a far way seeing, oh my God, every new console I had to pick up because I wanted the best new graphics. And I remember so many games I played, and I look back on it now, and I'm like, why did I play this game? It was such a terrible game. But then I look back at like 16, 17, and it was like the game that you had to play because it just looked so good on the brand new console.
Yeah.
So you'll
Well, I
look back
basically-
10 years down the line to see what holds on to its I guess what stands the test of time, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I basically think it boils down to this. Do you want to see a wall in a game and go, wow, that's a really pretty wall? Or do you want them not to worry about that texture and have an extra level in the game? That's what I base it on, is that all the work that's getting put into that could be redirected into making a game better.
I have too many instances where like I'll be playing a level, then I just stand back and I'm like, that just
Look at
looks
the wall.
Look at that.
Oh, it's
Oh,
dope.
I'm in the middle of a fire.
dude.
Hold on.
Yeah. Well, what I'll say is that it kind of goes both ways. While poor gameplay can certainly ruin a beautiful game, an ugly game can also ruin a game with good gameplay. For example, the example I'm going to use is I played through Numa. It was a free game with Games of Gold back in like November or something like that. Anyway, it was just an absolutely beautiful game. Okay, and it was a puzzler. It was a fairly short puzzler. And the puzzles were like, all right, they were decent. But that game, if it weren't, a beautiful game, it just would not have had the same appeal. It wouldn't have been immersive. It wouldn't have had, because there's a number of different things, not just how it looks, but also the sound quality of it. The ambiance of the game. So I think it really can go both ways. I think gameplay is definitely going to be paramount to graphical quality, but at the same time, graphic quality can also impair a person's enjoyment of the game, and it really depends on what the genre is. I don't know if we had if they came out with Witcher 3, for example, and it looked like last gen Witcher 3, or even like Xbox, the original Xbox or original PlayStation. I'll say PlayStation 2 graphics, would have people enjoyed it as much as they did? I would argue that they wouldn't, because that part of the appeal of that particular game was just how beautiful it was, and how when you walk into a town, you just feel like you're almost there. So I think it kind of works both ways.
Yeah, I also believe that has to do with the style of gameplay. Now, Ori and the Blind Forest is a perfect example of this. If that game was not beautiful, would have really sold as it did and gotten the recognition that it did.
Good example. Yeah.
Now, on the other side, do we really need HD graphics on, say, a game like Call of Duty? Do we really need those high fidelity textures?
No,
don't
but
think so.
I think that's what I would. Well, I would say yes, just for the fact that I think that it's what kind of differentiates it from something like Counter-Strike.
Right, it does differentiate it. I'm not saying Counter-Strike graphics, because we all know those are 1990s graphics.
Yeah.
They make me have a seizure every time I see them.
But that's the thing. It's
But
still
again, it's
a game that draws people in, even though the graphics aren't to par with what's out there now.
Right.
Because it is a great shooter game. The dynamic of it is everything a person wants in a shooter type game. And that's why it is a big monster in the Twitch universe.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm basically boiling it down to, guys, is graphics do matter, but I would easily give up graphics for a great game. That's basically what it boils down for me.
Okay. And our last topic of the evening, Xbox and Microsoft crossplay. Now, this is going to be a cross-buy edition of this, where we're talking about buying a game, say, on Xbox and being able to play it on the PC and vice versa. If you're paying for first-party titles for PC, Xbox Corporation. You can also play those on Xbox One. How do you guys feel that this is going to help the gamer? And how do you guys feel this would work? And do you think it's going to go seamless, or do you think there's going to be some problems with that first? We'll go ahead and start with Angry Iceberg.
It's hard to say. There's always going to be problems, I would say, but I think it's great for a gamer. Obviously, it gives them more options, to play the game on whatever, if they decide they want to play it on the PC or just play it on the Xbox, it'll open up who they can play it with. If there's, multiplayer option now, if it's cross-play versus just, if you're just buying it and you can play it on either system. But for example, Quantum Break, obviously I pre-ordered that. One of the reasons I pre-ordered it was because I could also play it on Windows 10 if I wanted to. So again, kind of goes back to the graphics. I could play on higher settings on Windows 10, but if I wanted to, I could take it over to the Xbox and take my save over, and it'll work seamlessly, hopefully. But I'm sure there's still going to be problems. And then you kind of look at how's it going to work for online play. That's a different thing. There's obviously going to be some problems there, but I think that giving the gamer more options is certainly going to be a benefit to the gamer, and I don't really see how it wouldn't be. But again, I don't know how widespread they're planning on doing this. I think this was a specific with Quantum Break, it might be kind of more of a trial run and see how it goes, and maybe they'll roll it out. But it's definitely an incentive to purchase Quantum Break. But I'm hoping it's not an incentive because they're worried about how the game's going to perform. So,
okay, Epic Dan.
Iceberg pretty much hit it on the head. There's a very seamless. We would expect it to be very seamless with Xbox and Microsoft because they're all the same people for the most part, and they kind of did it a little bit with being able to, if I'm not mistaken, stream or whatever they call it from your Xbox One to your Windows 10 computer, be able to play that. So it's kind of like I feel like the path that they're trying to go. Will it ever become fully cross-play, where you could just buy it on PC, be able to play it seamlessly on whichever console? I don't know. That'd be kind of cool. However, you come across the issue, if nothing else, of having different graphical outputs. You might have a PC that's technically stronger than your console. Are you going to make the gameplay out at the max, whatever they want to call it for PC games, like Ultra or whatever? Right. Are you going to allow that to be able to be playable, or are you just going to have it basically stick to console gameplay graphically? I find it, if they could do it, it'd be cool to be able to say, okay, if I play it on PC, it's going to have these crazy sliders for graphics. If I play it on console, I'll just be able to play the console-made version of it. If they can address that issue, that might help out a little bit. As far as multiplayer, if you have a multiplayer game that can cross-play, you might come across the issue with people hacking on PC, which I know a couple other games that have toyed with the idea of cross-platform gameplay, trying to figure out how they can stop someone from being on PC being able to hack a server or whatever and going unlimited ammo or glitching or something like that. Something that is a little harder to do on console, but you can lag switch and all that stuff. So they'd have to balance, console and PC with that. I know they're trying to, I've read a few articles that they are trying to go toy with this whole Microsoft and Xbox One. They might one day, if the gaming companies can play nice, go to the whole effect where you can, no matter what platform you're on, you can play cross-platform, at least multiplayer-wise, with other people. I don't think it'll ever happen. I know they've been trying to do it, but we probably won't live to see it, honestly, if nothing else. But if they can work on, like, the few things Iceberg has already spoken, I don't need to just reiterate it. But if they can work on the, how are they going to work with the graphics of it, how they're going to work with the gameplay of it versus being on PC versus Xbox, that'll probably make it a little more seamless. And just finding out how can they stop from people's servers hacking. So.
Right. All right. Monsterous Rage?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea for gamers. We've got PC gamers that there's a few Xbox games out there that they've never been able to play only because it's only available on the console, and the same with PlayStation games. But this gives those PC gamers the ability to try these games out, and as you were saying, Angry, with the pre-order situation, you can get one for both systems, one for free. In terms of the network between the two of them, right now, I think it's going to be more along the lines of something like Plants vs. Zombies, where you'll have everybody in the console version playing on the screen, and the person that's on the PC version has like an overlay map, and they're basically controlling or manipulating things on the game through that process. I don't see PC gamers and console gamers joining in together like on a Battlefield game. I just don't see that happening right now, only because, Xbox is limited in its power. Sure, it's got the Windows 10 app installed in it, and I guarantee that was part of this process of switching over to have them cross-play. These are just little steps that they're taking to get to that point, but I don't see it at a point where we can play on PC against somebody on console in the next coming year. I think that's something that's going to happen within 2 or 3 years, or maybe even the next generation cycle of the consoles. But it is going that way, and that's a great thing, because that means more people can play games together, and you're not stuck on one device to do it.
Right. I do have two concerns about this. One, it almost seems too good to be true, that we'd, buy an Xbox game and get a PC one for free. You know what I mean? It seems a little bit too good to be true. The second one is piracy. PCs are synonymous with people trying to pirate games. Now, would you be able to pirate games and then have them on your Xbox as well? That might be an issue.
No.
I think the reader would prevent that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think because the way they're going about it is they're sending you a code for it. So you're not going to be able to buy it on PC. Generally, I think the way it's going to work is more going to be you're going to buy it on Xbox and you also get it on PC. I don't think it's going to necessarily work the other way around.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be unlocked on the PC.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah, so it's
good.
So but it may just be like you buy this game, you get it on both, but again, you're getting the codes and not so much. I don't see it being pirated, in that way.
That's good, because that would absolutely suck. But I would really like to see it. I think cross-platform buying would be, beneficial to gamers everywhere, because you have more options to game. If you want to game it on your PC, you can. If you want to game it on your console, you can. Like I was saying kind of before the cast, maybe you want to put it on your Xbox and take it over to your friend's house and have a LAN party with the game. Instead of dragging your entire desktop over to somebody's house to play a game, maybe just take over your Xbox that you cross-bot for. I'm completely game with that. I think it's more feasible to do something like that than to take your rig. But yeah, I'm looking forward to see what Xbox and Microsoft is going to be doing with cross-buy in the next 3-6 months. See what they're going to do with it. But I believe that they did look ahead with putting the Windows 10 app on Xbox. PS4 is kind of screwed that way because they're using Linux. They're not using a well-known operating system. Well, it's well-known, but not widely used in the gaming world.
Yeah, that's the issue.
Yeah.
And there's going to be some untangling of the operating system in order for them to even consider doing that. So,
and let's also be clear that it's Microsoft that's doing this, not third party.
Yeah, it's Microsoft.
So it's first party games. Third party developers are more than welcome to jump on this, but they're not required to. So there is going to be a limited variety of games that are going to be crossing this, but who knows? Who knows what'll happen?
Yeah. I'm just going to be really excited to see what comes out in the next 6 months, like I said. There's a bunch of games that I'd love to do this for. No Man's Sky would be one, but that's PlayStation. So I'd love to play that on PC, but that will probably never happen. And that actually concludes the podcast for this evening. We're going to go around the room, tell us what you're doing, where we can find you, and when we can find you there. We'll go ahead and start with Monsterous Rage.
Yeah, I'm a variety broadcaster. I stream 6 days a week, Monday to Sunday. I know that doesn't make sense, but I alternate Saturday and Sunday for my day off. But yeah, I play Wii U, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, PC. Right now we're doing Castlevania Lords of Shadows 2. Ooh, there's a lot of blood.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, that's what we're playing right now. You're more than welcome to come on by. I'm at Twitch TV/Monsterous Rage. It should pop up in chat like poof, like that. I also have a side project going on. We do it every Friday called Fits of Rage. It is on YouTube, myself and DeFitster, and we have guests like Kadex pop in, and we do podcasts as well and gaming together. So that's what I do. Come and check me out. Feel free to hit that follow button, show the support, and we're good to go.
All right, Angry Iceberg.
Yeah, I am Angry Iceberg, a daily Destiny streamer, and I will not be jumping ship to the divisions, so you can expect me to be in there all next month. Well, hogging the directory. I'm excited because everybody's going to be playing the division and be like me and maybe Epic Dan. I don't know what his plans are. Just be him and I just hanging out in the Destiny directory all by ourselves, hogging all 10 viewers. Anyway, so you can find me there every single day of the week. I start streaming about 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern during the week. On the weekends, I try to get on about 2 o'clock Eastern. And that's, of course, in the afternoon on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Sometimes those times vary due to real life issues. Also, on Mondays, I do a sort of little podcast where I bring on 2 other great streamers. We talk about Destiny, we talk about streaming, and we talk about whatever for an hour, 2 hours, what have you. That's every Monday night starting at 7 o'clock Eastern time. And also, I'm uploading those episodes to YouTube. So you can find me on YouTube. You can also find me on Twitter at twitter.com/angry_iceberg, on Facebook at The Angry Iceberg. Let me see, I'm on Instagram. No, I'm not on Instagram. But anyway, so just check those out. You can find all the information for all my different accounts, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, everything in my info panels over on twitch.tv/angry_iceberg. That's it.
Take it away, Epic Dan. Our special guest of the evening, Epic Dan. Take it away.
I am Epic Dan22. I am mainly a Borderlands streamer. Also have been doing a lot of, since maybe like September, August, have been a Destiny streamer as well. Also, I'll play any variety game, basically. Any game I want to play on stream, I am going to play on stream. But most of the time, you'll find me either playing Borderlands or Destiny. I stream every day of the week, starting at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. I also have a YouTube that I do daily YouTube videos on. You can generally find 1 to 2 YouTube uploads a day. Pretty much all I do is Borderlands and Destiny. Whenever a new game comes out, I will play it. Division, I don't know. I'm probably in the in the ballpark with Iceberg. We're going to be jumping on that Destiny train even harder than we are already, knocking out all the extra views, and gonna have a great old time next month, I feel. Even though I will play a little bit of it, I probably more than likely would just focus that on my YouTube channel. But
fast forward 2 weeks, Division all the time. I'm a Division streamer now, guys.
2 weeks after the Division come out, I will put up a channel update saying I am a strictly only Division streamer until Division 2 comes out. So, but you can find me on pretty much Facebook. I have Instagram, but I've never used it at all. Not my thing. But I have a Facebook. If you want to follow an Instagram channel that does not get updated at all, you are free to do that. I have a YouTube. I have a Twitter. They all are Epic Dan22. So if you just Google Epic Dan22, you will find me in many places on the gaming world.
There we go.
Before you sign off, Kadex, I just want to quick. I know I've been saying it all day, not to you guys, but he's been hearing it all day. But Dworks, Dude, one last time, happy birthday. Dworks is in the chat right now. He's celebrating his 40th birthday today, and he's here with us tonight. One of my most supportive members of the Major Ragers. And so happy birthday, Dworks. Love you, bro.
Yeah, happy birthday, Dworks.
How is 40? I'm almost there. I'm almost there. How's 40?
You need more WD-40 for your joints.
I got 13 years. Let me know how it is.
There you go. And I am KadexGaming, Twitch stream dedicated helping you in game and in life. I am a daily Borderlands stream. On Sundays, we do have a community day where I let the KX Collective kind of come in and we play random games. I think we're going to be playing maybe some Rocket League or something on PS4 or something along those lines. I'm getting a big thumbs up from Epic Dan trying to fix the lighting on his camera. That's awesome.
They don't know.
And yeah, you're already here. So if you have not yet, smash that follow button like the boss that you are. And yeah, for Monsterous Rage, Angry Iceberg, our very special guest, Epic Dan22, this is Kadex, always here to urge you. Keep calm. Game on. And da 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 dance, do the dance, and